I'm sorry, let me try that again. Hi. Parents come into the clinic. A question is, do you give them tips before they come in for the open-ended interview so they bring in some of those unique reinforcers? And I want to make it very clear, we do not. Okay, we do have iPads and things that are common tangible reinforcers for kids on hand, but parents just accidentally usually bring that stuff along, and we know that it's often a controlling variable because they bring it with them without any advanced notice. It's just part of their lifestyle. So no, we don't give those kind of tips, but sometimes we do an interview and observation and parents do go home and they come back for the analysis, and we might say, would you mind bringing X or Y? But that's fairly rare. Okay. Can you please briefly repeat your point about reinforcing all behaviors, precursors, and major dangerous behaviors? And I'm happy to. Historically, people only reinforce dangerous behavior in the analysis. We think that's a problem because then all you will get is dangerous behavior in the analysis, and we do not want dangerous behavior. Okay. Some people then said, based on a wonderful article by Richard Smith and Churchill from University of North Texas, they taught us about precursors. And then from there, some practitioners were saying, oh, I'm only going to reinforce the non-dangerous precursors to behavior, those things that seem to signal that dangerous behavior is coming. The problem with that is if they engage in a dangerous behavior and you're set up to only reinforce the precursors, the dangerous behavior is going to persist unabated until it's reinforced. So again, the tactical commitment here is going in, being ready to reinforce either precursors or dangerous behavior. Chances are you'll get precursors. Chances are precursors will ultimately be the behavior that's emitted with regularity, and that's what we want. One other question, where can we learn to do a functional analysis using this approach? Are there articles, courses, training? You're in the training, baby. This is it. This is the best place on earth. This is the training. The other thing I would recommend, though, is to read that JABA study. It's a study I published with Sandy Jin, Nick Vansalo, and Laura Hanratty. It was in the slides earlier. It really outlines everything I'm saying, all the commitments, okay? Okay. Just one last stop on this analytic tour here. I want to make it clear the importance of getting experimental or functional control in the analysis. So when you learn about functional control as a behavior analyst, you learn about it, I did at least, as a binary. You either have functional control, you demonstrated that a behavior was sensitive to some independent variable, or it wasn't. You either show control in a reversal design, for instance, or you don't. Yes or no? But there's actually degrees of control. So I want to talk about these degrees of control and its implications for how we do analyses. Here's a small graph showing high degree or a strong degree of control. The control condition is always 0. The test condition is always elevated. There's no variability in behavior. Okay. Then we have moderate control. This is a picture of what moderate control might look like. You have 0 levels of behavior in the control condition, but you have variable levels in the test condition. And then finally, you might have what we call weak control. This is where you have elevated rates in the control condition and variability in the test condition. Now, these are all differentiated analyses. These are all analyses we would say we understand behavioral function because the test and control are different. But the top one clearly has better control, stronger control than the bottom one. And we used to say it doesn't matter. It's binary. As long as you have some control, you're good to go. And I don't think that's the case anymore, and here's why. I'm going to show you these implications, and then I'm going to go back to that graph. When you have strong experimental control, what that tells you is you have access to all the reinforcers and the establishing operations. You're on it. You can turn behavior on and off. And if you can do that, you'll probably be able to get away with an exclusively function-based treatment, a humane treatment for problem behavior. Now let's say you only have moderate experimental control. What are those implications? To me, the implications are actually fairly similar. It does mean that some other establishing operation is probably operating. It's affecting the value of that reinforcer to such an extent that sometimes they're not responding in your test condition, right? But the implication is the same. You can probably still get away with a function-based treatment only, The skill development might be a little slower because their motivation is apparently waxing and waning. But nevertheless, because you can turn behavior off in the control condition, you're probably not going to need to resort to punishment or some arbitrary token-based program. How about weak experimental control? Weak experimental control. Let's look at those implications. We have not identified all the reinforcers, have we? If we can't turn that behavior off in the control condition, we have not identified all the reinforcers. And if we have not identified all the reinforcers, we are on a road to behavior modification. Behavior modification being defined by the use of arbitrary rewards and punishers to change behavior. Okay? So let's go back to see how this plays out in the literature. Joshua Giselle looked at all the literature, and with these operational definitions in hand, strong, moderate, weak functional control, he evaluated the extent to which each analysis demonstrated those different forms of control across formats. What he found was the standard analysis yielded weak control more than 50% of the time. A lot of the efficient analyses, trial-based, brief, there was no functional control. Single sessions of a test, bar graphs where we can't determine whether behavior was turned on and off. When we do the interview-informed synthesized contingency analysis, we have strong control most of the time. This is the main reason I'm committed to this approach. Because if we have strong control over behavior, if I can turn that behavior on off, if every time I deliver reinforcement in the test it stops, if every time I design my control it's eliminated, I'm pretty confident we can eliminate problem behavior with just a function-based treatment. And that's our goal, right? Okay. So, last thing on assessment. If we want to achieve those humane goals we talked about at the very beginning, it's important that we demonstrate strong control over behavior before we attempt to treat that behavior. And for my group, we're getting the strongest probability of control when we do the interview-informed synthesized contingency analysis. Okay. Let's move on to treatment. Okay, I know there's a lot of questions about treatment. I might ask you to repeat them if I don't answer them. What I'm going to do is take you through the treatment process for one person. Then I'm going to talk about some aspects of treatment, cost-benefit, things of that nature, and then I'm going to reflect on the treatment so we can get back to the commitments again. Okay. The treatment broken out into more fine-grained steps looks like this. Here are the new parts, the parts that aren't in the literature. They're not terribly evident in the literature. We don't stop at simple FCT. We do a thing called complex FCT. I want to make sure that's emphasized. When we get to tolerance training, we have a specific set of procedures that lead to the generality of these outcomes. Okay, so we're going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay. So let's get to a case. These are Dale's data. Do you remember Dale? Dale engaged in problem behavior maintained by reinforcement of his mands, as well as the more mundane escape to tangibles and attention. Okay. Our baseline is the first column of data. The top panel is problem behavior. You see we have problem behavior at non-zero levels. That's from the functional analysis. We don't recreate baselines. We just take the test condition. That's our baseline. So that's one of the main reasons we do an analysis, so we have a baseline. We also, because we videotape all these, we measure the extent to which he engaged in a simple functional communicative response, or an FCR. We chose My Way. It's an omnibus mand. Basically what it does is it terminates all the establishing operations and provides them access with all the reinforcers. So when he goes into, sorry for all the acronyms, FCT plus extinction, functional communication training plus extinction, it means the threats or problem behavior no longer result in the reinforcement. The simple FCR does. Again, the simple FCR is My Way. How do we teach it with Dale? It was very simple. Other kids, it takes more micro-teaching, backward chaining, hand over hand fading. With Dale, it was someone else stood behind him, and as soon as Sandy approached him to do homework, they said, say My Way. He was just like, My Way? Sandy went away. Simple as that, okay? So when we do that, he's saying My Way. You see problem behavior is less. Now it's not zero, and I want to make it clear, I'm showing you our worst case. It's not zero because during the reinforcement interval he's still requesting things like go to Walmart and get me a new movie. He knew when the movies were dropping. He was that, understood that. It's a 5-minute session. It's hard to drive to Walmart. Okay, so we can't deliver those reinforcers, so we have a little variability. But by and large, you see the problem behavior is reduced when we taught them in a more effective way to get access to those reinforcers. We then move to what we call complex FCR. It looks simple on a graph, right? Problem behavior is still low, simples go away, and complex goes up. Let me explain what a complex FCR is. First thing, if kids have problem behavior maintained by social reinforcers, no matter what those social reinforcers are, we need to teach them how to get someone's attention, right? You have to teach them to get attention. So we teach all kids to some excuse me response. If they don't engage in vocal verbal behavior, it might be a tap, it might be something on pro loco to go, excuse me, okay? Then we have them wait to be acknowledged, yes, Dale. Then we have them engaged in the FCR, but we stretch it developmentally. So Dale was now required to say, may I have my way, please? And we shape during this phase, we shape. We make sure that when he says, excuse me, it's towards us. We make sure he doesn't go, excuse me, my way, please. Excuse me? May I have my way, please? Yes, buddy. Do you see what I'm saying? Make sure the tone is right. Make sure the volume is right, the articulation. So we shape. We didn't have to shape watch Dale. He had good skills. For some kids, we spent a lot of time in complex FCR. Now, why are we doing all this? Because this is what's going to promote its generality. We used to have kids leaving our FCT sessions like this. Play with me, please. Right? Play with me, please. And we'd go, whoom! And we'd play with them really quick. But then when they go back to the classroom, people aren't behaving like that, right? Teachers can't stop with them, run over. Slow it down. So we talk about how we're going to play it cool when we get to complex FC. We act a little dumb. We do. Dale might say, excuse me, and we go, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Dale? May I have my way, please? Yes, of course, Dale. Are you with me? Slow it down. We're already developing tolerance. We're trying to take the sweatiness out of the situation. Just cool it down, okay? So what he's doing now, instead of just saying, my way, please, he's engaging in a social exchange. It's very important before we get to delay and denial tolerance. It's a little social dance. We present the EO, Dale, let's put this away. It's time to do your homework. Excuse me. Yes, Dale. May I have my way, please? Of course, buddy. Every time he does the social dance, we reinforce it immediately, right? But it's slowed down. Okay. So we see that's happening right now. That takes a few sessions. Now, we don't do this as much in practice, this denial baseline, but let me describe what we did. We usually just go into the next part directly. Okay? The denial baseline was really for the parents' benefit. What we do now is half of the time, when he says, excuse me, may I have my way, please, we would reinforce immediately. And the other half of the time, we'd say no. And then we would withhold the reinforcer and try to have him do his homework. We'd just keep on prompting. And if you engage in problem behavior, we'd say, okay, you can have your wait time. And problem behavior comes right back. We like to teach parents that the repertoire is still there. And this guy's not ready to go home. This treatment is not ready to go home. Okay, he goes home. It's an outpatient clinic. Okay, but the treatment's not ready to go home. We need to teach him tolerance training. So that's what that baseline teaches us. So now we're going to do tolerance training. Before we get there, though, we measure a couple other things I want to point out. We measure the percentage of time he's in his way time, or the percentage of time he's in reinforcement. You can see in our treatment, he's in reinforcement most of the time. Is this where an 11-year-old should be? In school and at home? In his way time the whole time? No. So we measure this because our goal is to get that down to something reasonable, 20% to 30% his way time, and his parents' way maybe 70%. We're also measured compliance. If the bar's thin, it means he was not compliant. If the bar's thick, it means he was compliant. And as you can see, he was completely non-compliant. Every time Sandy said, get your backpack, let's do your homework, he did not listen to her. Instead, he engaged in problem behavior to get back to his wait time. Okay. Yes, miss?
I was just wondering.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let's get a microphone for you just so that people online can hear you.
I was just curious, did you say that this was something that needed to be done, or if this was something that doesn't have to be done?
Thank you. Great question. I am strongly recommending you do not do denial baseline. We did it to demonstrate functional control, to remind parents of the repertoire that's latent, but I don't do that anymore. Because we show functional control, as you'll see at the end, I'll point it out if you care, that we show functional control through a changing criterion design, where skills emerge when and only when we differentiate reinforce them. And so we don't need this reversal, if you will. So thank you for that question. You do not need to do this. But we did this in the study, so I'm showing it to you. What I'd like you to do is go from simple, complex FCR, to delay and denial tolerance training. Okay, here's the first step. We teach an explicit response to multiple signals of disappointment. These kids have been years where parents avoided saying no, wait, hold on. We put them right in, okay? So about half the time they say, excuse me, Dale says, excuse me, may I have my way, please? We say, of course, immediately. We have to reinforce it immediately some of the time, otherwise what's going to happen to that complex FCR? It's going to extinguish. So reinforce immediately some of the time. The other half of the time we say, unabashedly, no. Hold on, in a minute. Then we have someone behind him, say okay. He goes, okay. Then Sandy provides the reinforcer. Are you with me? You have to shape, you have to teach a tolerance response. How do you teach it? You prompt it and reinforce it with the most powerful cluster of reinforcers you know for this person, that which you identified in the functional analysis. So you with me so far? So what it looks like is half the time his complex FCR works, half the time that gets a disappointment stimulus, no, hold on, wait, and then all he needs to do is say, okay, and then we reinforce. So now we have 2 bits to his repertoire. Yes, sir?
I just had a quick question. What about a student who's nonverbal? What would tolerance?
Excellent. Super question. The question was, what would you do with the child who is non-vocal? What would the tolerance response be? We like to teach this, this, or this. Now this sounds a little strange, but it's because the vocal kids were saying, we were teaching them, that some other teachers made this up, but I love it. We'd say no, and they'd say, no problem. It's a very New England thing, perhaps. It was always like a little pinky ring, like, no problem. But it was like, no problem. And so some of the kids that didn't have anger, they just do one of these. That's rare, though. It's usually this. We used to have kids smile, too. And then I had a mom behind the one-way mirror with me, and she had a very beautiful son, handsome guy. And we taught him the tolerance response, and he would go like this, okay. And my mom was like, what are you doing to him? That is terrible. And so we dropped the smile requirement. If that comes along for the ride, so be it. But we just want to get, when someone disappoints you, you commit and say it's okay. Okay? As opposed to when someone disappoints you, you flop, you kick, you hit. Right? That's the knee-jerk response to disappointment that's been there historically. Again, how do we get the tolerance response? We reinforce it with the reinforcers identified in the analysis. Yes, miss?
Does the reinforcer need to be different? Does the reinforcer need to be different for what they say for my way versus what you give them when they say okay?
No. Thank you. Great question. The reinforcer is exactly the same. Okay. So when they engage in the FCR, we provide escape to tangibles, attention, and compliance with his mands. When he says, okay, we stop prompting him to do his homework, escape, he gets access to tangibles, attention, and compliance with mands. It's the same reinforcer. We're just teaching him sometimes I need a little bit of behavior from you, and sometimes I need a little bit more behavior from you. That's it. Okay. Then we go into response chaining. So let's get to that. It did. I think I just need to get the slideshow working. Here we go. Nope. Can you forward it, Steve? Is it possible? Okay. Let's forward that 2 slides, I believe. There we go. So we're at the tolerance response now. You see that he's acquired the tolerance response. Okay. He would do vocal and the hand gesture. Is he ready to go home yet? Of course not. Let's look at the next slide. Because the next slide, you see, he's still in his way time most of the time. So here's where we do response chaining. It's very simple. A lot of behavior analysis is going to come right off for you. We separate what we're going to ask him to do, what we're going to chain to the tolerance responses into 3 levels: easy, medium, and hard. We're not going to start out having him do the hard stuff first. We're going to start out doing easy stuff. So what it looks like is, he says, excuse me, may I have my way, please? In a proportion of the time, about 40% of the time, we say, of course, yes, immediately. The other 60% of the time, we say, no, do this first. What do we start with? Simple. Walk over here, stand up, sit down, clap your hands, touch your nose. This is easy, cheesy stuff for this guy, okay? you can see, because the bar's thick and it's white, we're doing level 1 demands, and he's complying with them. Then over time, we start introducing demands like this. Unzip your backpack, take your book out, erase the board, tuck your shirt in, wipe your face. Okay. Then over time, we start introducing the toughies. 30 minutes of reading comprehension, doing a whole hygiene routine. What does it look like? He says, excuse me, ma'am, my way, please. Sometimes we say yes. Remember this. I don't care how far out you are in delayed denial tolerance training, you have to reinforce the complex FCR immediately some of the time, otherwise it'll go away. Some of the time we say no, and he says okay, and we reinforce that immediately. Because if you don't reinforce the tolerance response immediately, some of the time it will go away. It'll extinguish. But unpredictably, some of the time we say, no, do this first, do some reading. Do we tell him how much? It's unpredictable, because we want to steal him for the ambiguities of the world. Now he starts doing his reading work. We say, hey, that's a great job. It's your wait time. Do we terminate the delay based on time? 5 minutes transpired, your wait time. I have a timer, egg timer, all that? No. We like to say we want treatments without fanny packs. Do you see what I'm saying? No fanny packs. No timers, no tokens, none of this. Just the stuff of life. Okay? So he's working for 5 minutes. He has no idea. Could be 10 minutes. Might be 15 minutes. We terminate the delay. He goes into my wait time. What are we doing? We're using the same reinforcer to reinforce various chains of behavior. The smallest link in the chain is the social dance. Excuse me, may I have my way, please? A little longer. Excuse me, may I have my way, please? No. Okay. Excuse me, may I have my way, please? No. Okay. Do this first. He does it first. He's doing it a long time. Then he gets his way. Are you with me? They're chains. And those chains are various lengths. It's the same reinforcer. It's unpredictable and intermittent reinforcement of various chains of behavior. We start gradual, easy, then we systematically increase the difficulty and the length of what he needs to do during the delay. You see the gray bars are going down. That's because he's in his reinforcement time less. See, problem behavior is near zero most of the time. Complex FCR is maintaining. Why? Because we reinforce it immediately some of the time. Tolerance responses are maintaining because we reinforce it immediately some of the time. Then you can see we extend the treatment. At this point, there's zero level of problem behavior. Okay? When we have treatment extension, what that means is parents come into the therapy room and they implement the treatment. And everyone wants to have a copy of our parent training manual. But I don't have one because all I say is, your turn. Now why? Because they've been with me the whole time. They've been with our team the whole time. They've heard why we're doing, what we're doing, and how we do it. Then we put them in the room. So they start implementing the treatment, and then we take the treatment home or on the road with them. In the open-ended interview, it's not on yours. We don't have it on the interview form, but we always ask a question to the parents. We ask them what we call wish list questions. What would you like to do with your family or your son and daughter that you can't do now because it's severe problem behavior? What's your dream context you could go to? And that's where we end our sessions on. Okay? So this family had a couple dream contexts. I don't know if you saw that when I had the instructions up. One of the dad for Dale always wanted to play ball with him. The dad was a big basketball fan, like me, and his boy wanted nothing to do with basketball. He was a movie guy. And so a lot of times the boy would come home, and Dad implemented the treatment. It would look like this. The boy would throw his backpack down, and Dad would say, listen, go get cleaned up, put some gym stuff on, we're going to go play basketball. And the boy would say, excuse me, Dad, man, my way, please. And sometimes Dad had to say, yes, right? And then sometimes Dad would say, no, go ahead, go get changed. Sometimes he'd get changed and say, you know what, it's your wait time. Put his gym stuff on, it's your wait time. Sometimes he'd say, come on, let's go, let's play. They'd get in the driveway, passing basketballs to each other. And his son never knew when that was going to end and when he could get my way time. And there wasn't signal, there was no token board, there was no timer. Okay? Just unpredictable chains of behavior that the parents wanted. The main dream, though, was to go to Super Walmart, walk through the entire store as a family, buy things, groceries and things for both the parents, and buy nothing for Dale. That was their dream context. They said there's no way in heck they could ever do that with Dale before, okay? So that was the last bit of sessions where the family walked through Target together. Okay. You can see at the end here, Dale's at about 30% of the time it's in my way time. About 70% it's other parents' way. You can see the bars are mainly dark. That means he's doing high-level things, reading comprehension, playing ball with his dad, all that cleaning up, doing hygiene. Okay. One other thing I want to, point out is that we do social validity processes, so I'm going to show you those data now. I guess before I do that, let me talk about Bob and Gail. What do you think we asked Bob to do during the delay period? How do you think he terminated the delay period? What behavior did he need to engage in? Remember Bob? He has a problem. He was controlled by access to his way with math or his iPad. What do you think he had to do? I know it's hard to ask for participation when I've talked at you for 2 hours. It's a terrible tactic.
No math work.
There you go.
During the delay, you didn't do any math work.
That's right. He did other academics. Okay? He'd say, excuse me, yes, Bob. May I have my way, please? Sometimes, of course, Bob. Sometimes, no, let's do this instead. Let's play with a different game on the iPad. What do you think when he was doing his math? Sometimes we continued doing math, but we had him do math our way. And we actually had to have the teacher teach us how to do math because he was doing math that we really didn't understand, to be honest, which was impressive. Okay. Oh, you bet. Gail, what do you think Gail was doing during the delay? What do you think Mom really needed Gail to do during the delay? Let Mom engage in her activities, making dinner, helping her older siblings with homework, while Gail played with other toys. Sometimes I prefer toys, but these wish list contexts are often almost a little vindictive. Mom was like, oh, I got an idea. The treatment is the best, I know the treatment will work if I play with her siblings, she's not allowed to play with us, and we play with her toys. Now, you might say, well, that's kind of mean, isn't it? And it's not. Mom was very smart. She was not going to stop our relationship, and she knew the treatment worked. We push kids at the end of this. We're not teasing them. We want to make sure we can't turn on the problem behavior because their skills are too good. So that's what we did. Mom's playing with her toys, and as soon as she started playing with something else, Mom would say, oh, baby, can we use that? We need that for a school project. She tried to be really authentic about it and would take that. No, that's sad, right? It's a little sad. But we know the treatment's working if Gail just handles it, plays with the toys. And how does she learn to handle it? Because as soon as she tolerates Mom doing something like that, Mom stops what she's doing, she comes over and gives her the highest grade play she's ever had. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's contingent. It's contingent on communicating and tolerating and listening. Okay, those three are the bits of the repertoire we're trying to reinforce with those functional reinforcers. Okay, Mom's wish list context was to cook an entire meal and sit down and have a meal with their daughters without any meltdowns. That was the end of the process. Bob's, I'm going to show you some data for Bob in a minute. I'm sorry, gentlemen, it doesn't seem to be moving. Okay, here we go. These are the steps of the process. For these three families, what I'm putting down is how many visits it took. On average, it took 27 visits. These are 1-hour visits, between 23 and 32 visits. We also added in supervision meetings. This is where I met with the analysts, Sandy and Nick, in report writing. Families receive these services free of charge. Yes, miss?
What is the frequency of your 1-hour visits?
They're 3 to 4 times a week. So we are reluctant to work with families if we can't see them at least 3 times a week, because we think kids need to practice these skills fairly close in time. So we like 3 hours a week, but we're open 5 days a week. And so we hope parents can do 5 days a week if possible. We usually are open in the evenings, so parents can come and be in attendance. We didn't charge families for this because this is part of our research mission, but nevertheless we extrapolated the cost. We always have 2 behavior analysts working with families. One's a lead and one's an assistant. So we can say one's a BCBA and one's a BCABA. In Massachusetts, if you've demonstrated competence, you can earn up to $125 an hour as a BCBA. You can earn $75 an hour at most as a BCABA. That's the highest you can earn. It's capped by these insurance legislation. So we said, okay, it's $200 an hour, and we extrapolated the cost. So the extrapolated cost is $7,000 an hour to go from the open-ended interview to the point where parents are saying, we're good. $7,000. Now you may say, that's a lot of money. And to me, that is a lot of money. One of the families in particular, there's no way they could have shelled out $7,000, so we clearly need support for this. But I want to just compare that number to other numbers. In Massachusetts, if you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, you spend more than $7,000. If you buy an SUV and you get the movie thing to keep your kids managed and you get the backup camera, you might be dropping that amount of money. I made the mistake of 3 years ago taking my kids to Disney World, stayed in the park. Holy smokes, it's about that much money. Oh my God. Why didn't we just go to the beach? Okay. Richard Gantz works in the School of Public Health at Harvard. About 11 years ago, he did a study estimating how much it costs to raise a child with autism above and beyond the typical cost of raising a child. It was $3.2 million. In Massachusetts, if your child needs to leave the school and home and go to residential treatment, it's $300,000 a year. $7,000. This is chump change. Every family, to me, deserves access to this process, funded in some way, insurance legislation, health care, private funding, school. We have to find multiple mechanisms to pay for this because this is not expensive, but residential care is expensive. A lifetime of problem behavior is expensive. Let's talk about some social validity. We asked parents, when all was said and done, what did they think about the assessment process? The previous slide, please. I believe it's the previous slide. You see, oh, I can get it. Why am I signaling to my friends? Let's see. Here we go. No, we're still not there. There we go. Stay. Good. We asked about what they thought about the assessment, the acceptability of the treatment, the satisfaction with the improvement in problem behavior, as well as the helpfulness of the consultation. These are scores reflective of Sandy Ginn and Nick Vancelo's behavior, not my own. But nevertheless, they get highly acceptable, highly satisfied, or very helpful. I want to make it very clear, I did not ask these questions in the past when I did functional analysis because I knew the answers weren't these. It was, I think they're better. They're doing okay. Thank you. They're reactive. We have a nice relationship, but we're kind of doing a little gaze avoidance because we know that that child's leaving the clinic, the hospital, the classroom, my care, my consulting with SIB and aggression still intact. But that's not the case anymore. It's not the case when we go through this process. Parents are agreeing that the amount of improvement in problem behavior is very satisfactory. We also ask parents questions in the beginning, what their conditions under which they're most alarmed, scared of their child, or are the most difficult in their home. And we ask their parents directly. We say, are you scared of your child? We need to know that. Okay? Are you scared of your child? And we want to make sure we don't end our relationship until they say, I am not scared of my child. We do not want anyone leaving the clinic scared of their children. But they give us specifics. For Gail, mom's concerns with taking away toys, telling her no, giving her instructions. That's pretty much what we need to do as parents, don't we? That's what we need to do as parents. But mom was concerned about all these conditions. These are the other ones. We ask them prior to treatment what their comfort level is. We ask them after treatment. We don't end our relationship unless we have a 6 or a 7. We also have open-ended feedback. I love the open-ended feedback. This is feedback again regarding Nick. I love the end. I too have developed patience in how to communicate with her without the meltdowns. Mom was referring to her own. But these are my favorite open-ended data from the trio. These are from Bob. I didn't tell you this, but Bob's family admitted they haven't left the house in 2 years other than to take him to school or to go to the doctor's office because of the embarrassing and dangerous nature of his meltdowns. They went to the Connecticut Science Museum, the Boston Science Museum, and Hampton Beach. Has anyone from New England area, have everyone been to Hampton Beach? Did you know what Hampton Beach is? Is that stuff crazy or what? I take my kids there at least once a year. I want you to see what the world's like, my friends. Motorcycles, tattoo parlors, skee ball. It's craziness, crazy town up there in Hampton Beach. That is not where you go with a child with autism that kind of likes things particular predictable ways, okay? Really happy about that sort of feedback. Okay, let's reflect on this process really quick. There's 4 steps to achieve these outcomes. We have to identify the reinforcing contingency. We cannot mess around. We need to identify the reinforcing contingency. Everything is predicated on having that reinforcer because we're going to build those chains of behavior with that reinforcer. Second, we need to replace problem behavior with some functional alternatives. The alternatives of communication, toleration, and compliance. These are on everybody's IEP. These aren't new. But what's new, perhaps, is the stringing together of them, the chaining of these repertoires together with the functional reinforcer. We need to teach child to tolerate intermittent and unpredictable periods of non-reinforcement. Teach them to handle it when they can't have their way, if you will. Finally, we need to extend the treatment to parents and families, and we don't really have a scientific approach to this yet. We need to work on that. Let's get more specific. Oh my God, there's all these questions. I am a horrible online manager. Holy smokes, let's take a few. No sound. We fixed that. Thank you, team. Okay. Question is, let's just take a breath. Let's do a couple questions. Shoo. Okay. Question is, do you continue the 3 to 5 minute test condition for the designated time if the child doesn't engage in a precursor of problem behavior? I go out to 5 minutes then because I'm so impulsive, I just say, let's stop. Go to control, go back to test. If we don't get it in 15 minutes, I re-interview. Okay? Parents usually standing right there. What's going on? Does that not look like the problem you described to us? No. What often happens is, okay, thank you. Then we put that in the analysis. Okay? This is a great question. While you're in the teaching phases, what do you ask the parents to do at home? Superb question, whoever you are. There's 2 approaches. If the parents can maintain safety and have, up to this point, relative safety, we say do what you normally do at home. Do not take any of this home until the entire repertoire is built. That's the case because we don't want them going home and prompting and reinforcing FCRs when the child doesn't have a tolerance repertoire. Do you see what I'm saying? We're going to get problem behavior chained to it. It's going to become a mess. So we say, just do what you normally did. And everything we're working on here, do not take home as homework. This is not a homework model. Okay, let us build a repertoire. In case there's some extinction-induced phenomena, let us deal with it. By contrast, if it's a dangerous situation, so we do this at places dealing with the most severe problem behavior kids around, places like New England Center for Children, for instance. These folks are 18 years old. They might be large. They're engaging in very severe problem behavior. I cannot tell the staff to do what they were doing normally because they brought me in there to help them with that situation because normal was resulting in concussions and trips to the hospital and all that. So we have what we call a keep a lid on it approach. I can't prescribe keep a lid on it until I've done the functional analysis, so I need 1 to 2 days, and then we can give advice. Keep a lid on it approach involves the non-contingent, continuous provision of the reinforcers. Take the kid out of programming. Stop hammering him with IEP goals that he hasn't met in several years. Provide all the reinforcers as much as you can, as often as you can. And then there's one more wrinkle. If they engage in a precursor behavior, reinforce it. Yes? That's actually the little trick. That's how people manage folks with severe problem behavior right now. You see a little agitation, you throw reinforcers at it. Now in the long run, that's the worst thing you could do, right? We know that. In the long run, that's the worst thing you do. But in the short run, that keeps the peace. That keeps a lid on it. Okay, so what's our treatment? What do we ask people to do when we're building up the repertoire? If it's severe, dangerous situations, provide the reinforcers non-contingently and for precursors until the repertoire is built. Then we'll extend it. If it's not terribly severe, the parents can manage it. We say, do whatever you've been doing before we met you. And then we'll put the treatment out there when we can. Okay. I'm going to answer some more questions after I reflect on the process. Let's reflect really quick. Our function-based treatment is always skill-based. You notice FCT. Jeff Tiger wrote a nice piece on FCT a while back. It's still not too old. It's available for free. His name is Jeff Tiger. If you Google Tiger and FCT, this article will come up. It's like a task analysis, how to do functional communication training. Let me tell you what I'm taking off the buffet. Extinction alone. That means I know what you want, but you can't have it. Right? That's extinction alone. We don't do extinction alone. We don't do non-contingent reinforcement. That's giving away reinforcers for free when we need to build repertoires. People with autism and developmental disabilities are characterized by not having the same amount and type and quality of behavior as their same age peers. We cannot just give the reinforcers away and get less behavior. We need to get more behavior out of people. So we use differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. I don't love DRO either. What is DRO? As long as you don't engage in problem behavior, here's the reinforcer. So you're not doing anything with precision. The behavior you get is by accident. DRA is precise. I want this behavior and that behavior, and you reinforce those behaviors. So for us, FCT is a non-negotiable. We always increase the complexity, flexibility, and interactional nature of the FCR. We call that complex FCR. We want a social dance. We want to cool it off. We want to make it developmentally appropriate, stretch out the mand, if you will. We explicitly teach responses to delay and denial. Okay? Now I want to get this, please just ignore that slide. I know I'm going fast. Please hang with me. We're going to talk for 10 more minutes. Then we get back, we'll have question time. I want to show you this graph really quick. These are data published a while ago, but they make the point. Problem behavior, FCT, when continuously reinforced. It's lovely. We can do this. Here's what we used to do. Slowly increase the delay to reinforcement found in the communication, right? We call that delay training. We have weighting programs all across the country that does this. Now we're going slow. We're really deliberately slow. 1 second, 2 second delay, 4 second delay. And here's what happens, and this happens all the time. As the delay gets bigger, you'll see a burst of communication, right? Food please, food please, food please, play with me, play with me. We can tolerate that, right? But what happens when that goes away, what comes back? Problem behavior. We call that resurgence. Time-based, this is called time-based progressive delay. They mand, they wait a certain amount of time, then you provide reinforcement. Because we don't have a lot of time, let me be blunt. Time-based progressive delay is a loser. It's a complete loser. You do not want to hang around with it. It never works when we get it out to a realistic set of conditions. Okay? Here's what I want you to consider instead. Here's why. We call it contingency-based progressive delay. It's what I modeled with Dale. And Marshid Gaimagami, she's another one of my graduate students, a wonderful student. She did a comparative analysis. This is just a little bit of data. When she did time-based progressive delay, that's the data here, she saw problem behavior resurge. When she did contingency-based progressive delay, she saw maintenance of low rates even at long delays. What does that mean, contingency-based progressive delay? It means you don't end the delay based on time. You end the delay when someone's engaged in a particular set of behavior for a long enough time. You're reinforcing a repertoire. Do you see what I'm saying? In this study, this little boy had to play effectively with his toys for 2 seconds, and then the mand was reinforced. Then he had to play for 10 seconds. What's getting reinforced? Chain of behavior. No. Okay. Play, play, play. Reinforcement. As opposed to time-based progressive delay, it's play with me, please. No. Some accidental behaviors. Pick. Ding, ding, ding. Reinforcer times out. Oh, what'd you just reinforce? Nose picking. Perhaps a little whining, a little irritation, right? Time-based progressive delay is an accidental reinforcement of what happens when the timer goes off. We need contingency-based progressive delay. Program for the behavior you want to see during the delay. What do you want them to do? Do you want them to leave, go get toys, play independently, make a phone call, do some work, do some hygiene? Program it. End the delay with that reinforcer. The reason why I love contingency-based progressive delay, though, is not because of these data. It's because of these data. And I'm sorry this is a little complicated. I'm going to go through it fast, but just let's be mindful of the main points. This is time-based progressive delay here. A lot of problem behavior. This is contingency-based progressive delay. No problem behavior despite long delays being imposed. That's just like the data I showed you, right? But here's the cool part. Marshid had a secondary context with a teacher that was unaware of any of the behavioral teaching going on in the primary context. And the secondary context was run every now and then. When she did time-based progressive delay, he still had problem behavior in the secondary context. When she did contingency-based progressive delay, there was no problem behavior in the secondary context. Why is that? Because she taught him a skill. Because in the secondary context, when the teacher said no, he then said, okay. Then turned away from her and started playing. Skill-based treatments go on the road with kids. Kids carry the skills with them. They don't put them in a fanny pack. You don't need tokens and boards and lamination and Velcro. Do you see what I'm saying? Skills. Skills move with the kids. And this is just a small example of the generality of a skill-based treatment and the lack of generality of a non-skill-based treatment. Okay, let's end on this slide. Okay, 5 critical aspects of delay denial tolerance training. We have a study for each of these. They'll be coming out, trust me, but these are the 5 commitments that have come out of this line of work. 1, we always provide immediate reinforcement for some FCRs. Please don't teach a new communication response and then have it at a 3-minute wait. Do you know what I mean? You go into a program, they say, well, he's at a 3-minute wait. Every time he mans, he has to wait 3 minutes. Why would you ever mand, right? Okay, it has to be reinforced immediately some of the time. Teach an appropriate response to multiple cues of disappointment. Okay, no problem, teach a response. Progressive increase the average amount of behavior, not just time. Time-based progressive delay is a loser. Contingency or behavior-based progressive delay will yield generalizable tolerance. I haven't emphasized these, so let's end on these 2. Terminate the delay for various amounts of behavior. They can't always be at a fixed delay. It can't always be 5 minutes of work, 5 minutes of play, because at some point they can't handle the 5 minutes. They can't handle the 30 minutes of reading comprehension. Sometimes make it a little bit of work, sometimes make it a lot bit of work. If you vary that work requirement, you're going to get those chains of behavior persisting. It's not about fixed. It's about varying. And then finally, and this is hard for behavior analysts, and some of you guys aren't going to agree with me, and that's okay, we might have to talk through this one. Don't signal how much work needs to be done. Leave it unpredictable. I don't have the time, but we have studies showing that unpredictable work requirements yield better outcomes than predictable. But more important than this, we do these treatment preference assessments. We have kids experience treatments, then we allow them to choose which one they prefer. And these kids normally choose unpredictable work requirements. They don't want you to have the token board with the 10 things they need to earn. They don't want you to turn the egg timer and say you have to do 10 minutes of independent play. Just say play and then reinforce various amounts of play behavior. Unpredictable, varying amount of behavior during that delay. Okay. It's probably best we take a break. I'll read these questions, folks, during the break so I can articulate some answers to them when we get back. When we get back, we'll do a Q&A session, then we'll get to prevention and sleep. It's 12:05 now. It seems like we should come back at 1:20. Yes? Is my math correct?
Probably just a little bit longer than that.
1:21. What time?